people's faith in governments and institutions. And so the message is clear. Our institutions need an update. In November, leaders committed in the Summit of the Future to reforming the tools of global governance, from global financial institutions to the United Nations itself, in particular the UN Security Council, which lacks legitimacy and effectiveness. This agenda of reform was clearly reflected in the Pact for the Future, which was adopted at the UN Summit of the Future. And you are critical to bringing that pact to life and helping to lead this process of reform and renewal. How can we do that? First, the G20 must lead on delivering financial justice. As you know well, financing is fundamental, from inclusive economic growth to supporting industrialization and food security or addressing inequalities. The Pact for the Future includes commitments that provide a roadmap to reform global financial institutions. These institutions must represent today's economy, not the world of decades past. And developing countries must be represented fairly in their governance. These institutions must also protect economies, particularly vulnerable ones, from global shocks. It is time to mend and strengthen the global safety net that during the COVID we detected that it was no longer entirely fit for purpose. And we need to mobilize finance at scale to close the Sustainable Development Goals financing gap. This means substantially increasing the capital and lending capacity of multilateral development banks, making them bigger and bolder. And allow me a personal note. We are all aware that we have not enough money to address all the challenges that we face. Development challenges, climate challenges, and many other dramatic problems that our world is full of. And when we have not enough money, the capacity to multiply the money that exists becomes vital. And that is where I truly believe that an enhanced role of multilateral development banks is absolutely crucial. If one of your countries puts $1 in a project of support in some place in the world, $1 is $1. If the same country puts $1 in the capital of a multilateral development bank, that dollar is 5, 7, depending now on how the bank has access to financial markets. And indeed, I'm a true believer that we need to make a strong bet in making bigger and bolder our multilateral development banks, and that the capitalization of the banks is one of the key instruments. And if I remember well my times as Prime Minister, when you put some capital in an international financial institution, you do not need to put it in the deficit of your budget. So there is another advantage for using this kind of mechanisms to multiply the resources that we have and we recognize are not enough for all the challenges that we face. At the same time, it's very important to boost concessional funding, but to take into account that not only GDP must be the metrics. It's very important to look especially also at vulnerability. And we have just approved in the General Assembly a comprehensive vulnerability index. At the same time, we need action to make the debt resolution architecture work in a more timely and effective manner. We need meaningful solutions to address the debt crisis so countries can invest in meeting the basic needs of their people and drive long-term development. The Pact for the Future includes a proposal for the IMF to lead a review of ways to strengthen and improve the sovereign debt architecture in collaboration with key partners. I recognize all the efforts the G20 has made in relation to the so-called framework, but let's be clear, we are far from having an instrument able to address the debt problem that exists at global level. A number of examples are positive, but the examples do not represent the total reality that we face. Last week, I appointed a group of leading experts to galvanize international support for action on debt, and I'm delighted that Trevor Manuel will be part of this important work. It's also time to build a more inclusive and equitable international tax system, and we'll be working hard, and different other institutions are working hard in order to make sure that we really make progress in relation to a more equitable international tax system. And July's conference on financing for development in Spain is a critical opportunity to make progress in all these key areas. And I urge finance ministers and central banks to fully engage in the preparations for this conference, so leaders can arrive prepared to advance high-impact solutions on financing for development. One of the problems that we still have in international institutions, and I was Prime Minister and I know how difficult it is to coordinate a government when you have different ministries with different views. The truth is that in many of these institutions, countries are represented by different ministries. And so the capacity to have ministers of finance fully engage in the preparation of these international conferences to make sure that what makes things move is part of the agenda is absolutely essential. Second, we need the G20 to lead on delivering climate justice. Many vulnerable countries are being forced to respond to a crisis they did nothing to create. Meanwhile, they lack the necessary financial support to seize the benefits of clean energy, to spur prosperity and eliminate poverty. As the world's top emitters, G20 countries must lead the way in line with the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, but recognizing that every G20 country has to do more in the reduction of emissions. By next year, every government must deliver new economy-wide national climate plans and align with limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. These new plans must cover all emissions and the whole economy, accelerate a just fossil fuel phase-out, and contribute to the energy transition goals agreed at COP28. At the same time, we need developed countries supporting developing ones with adequate, affordable, and accessible finance and technology, through meaningful contributions to the New Loss and Damage Fund, by doubling adaptation finance by next year as promised, and by forging new partnerships, like the Just Energy Transition Partnership that South Africa has pioneered, to pave the way to a renewable future for all countries swiftly and fairly. And we must also ensure that Africa's critical mineral resources that can power the renewables revolution worldwide benefit Africans first and most. We cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. The UN panel on critical energy transition minerals, co-chaired by South Africa and Sweden, identified a set of principles and recommendations, and the European Union, identified a set of principles and recommendations to empower communities, create accountability, and ensure that clean energy drives equitable and resilient growth with maximum added value in producing countries. And third, we need the G20 to lead on technological justice. From digital technology to artificial intelligence, the developing world needs to access and benefit from the technological revolution. At September Summit of the Future, world leaders endorsed the Global Digital Compact to spur progress across all these areas. The compact includes the first universal agreement on the international governance of artificial intelligence, ensuring that every country has a seat at the AI table. It calls for an independent international scientific panel on AI and initiating a global dialogue on its governance within the United Nations. And it requests options for innovative voluntary financing for AI capacity building in developing countries. We need the G20 supporting developing countries as they invest in the digital-driven systems and solutions that their people need to boost prosperity, to create jobs, and to drive sustainable development. Across all these areas, you as G20, Sherpas, finance ministries, and central bank representatives are essential in helping to set the agenda and ensure that resources are aligned globally and nationally to bring it to life. I look forward to working with the G20 presidency of South Africa to help transform the words and commitments of the Pact into results for all countries. And I thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think the issues that you've raised are part of the agenda and have been debated very intensely over the last 2 days, and they'll be debated for the next 10 months. I'm not sure if our Minister would like to say a few words before we thank you again.
No, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, welcome. I will be going to be with you for a while this afternoon. I'm welcoming my colleagues from the finance track. There's not much that I'm going to say for this time, other than thanking the Secretary General in his busy schedule to decide to make a turn here. And he's got an urgent meeting to do. He's meeting the President in the next 45 minutes, and I think we should be able to release him to do this way to Pretoria. Thank you very much, Secretary General.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, and once again, I hope that the next time you'll see me in a better outfit.
So colleagues, this is my last action, and my apologies to the colleagues from Spain, and we did do this informally with the SG. Is fully appreciative. I've been told by the finance deputy that lunch will be between now and 2 o'clock, so it's a 30-minute lunch. And so you're going to grab and eat and then come back at 2 o'clock, and then you'll be fully in the hands of Duncan. Thank you and goodbye.